Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. It seems that people like to see me working. Yeah, cheers for that. Anyway, this video is watering and having a look at the Holey clay pots as I go. So it kills two birds with one stone for me, which I quite like. We haven't had a closer look at the Holey clay pots for a while. They come round every now and again because it's mainly Cattleya types, but there are some others lurking in there. So I've got my water and my feed set up, so it's just a matter of lifting down each plant in turn. Everybody seems to have enjoyed this bloom an awful lot, me included. As I say, this is little lemon drops crossed with Cattleya, why not? It has had, well, still got I suppose, 2 leads on it, both of which bloomed. This is a lovely little compact Cattleya. I'm very pleased with this. That means you're not liable to get the hugest blooms as Cattleyas go, but they don't have to be big to be attractive. There's only one bloom left, and that's probably got about a day left, and that's going to fall. And that's that particular point. It'll have a little bit of a rest, I suspect, of a short time, and then it'll get on with pushing some new growths. Now, every time I inspect a plant, I look, and as you can see, scale have managed to get right up in under that sheath at the base of that leaf. So after I've watered it, that's bad as well. Where's the camera? So, that's bad, yeah. I don't see anywhere else. But we do have sheaths on this plant. Yep, there's some in there as well. So this plant needs the sheaths taken off. So that's a bit of extra work. I won't film that because that will be a little bit fiddly and it will take a while. But let's get the watering done and get it out of the way, and I'll put it to one side. That's laziness on my part. Excuse me. This one's never shown any sign of scale. And most of the time when I see scale on some of the Cattleya types, they're around the base, around the rhizome area. So they're quite easy to see and quite relatively easy to deal with. And when I water these pots, I always make sure I water the pot as well. Aerial roots get a good soak, and obviously the media gets a good soak. But that one needs dealing with. So that needs putting to one side. That's just laziness on my part. Virtually all of the pseudobulbs on there have got their sheaths right up to the base of the leaves. Normally I pull them off at potting time. Once they're off obviously. That's that one done. I mean, this is a tatty looking plant, but you can see the sheaths have been taken off on all of the pseudobulbs. The reason is they are virtually guaranteed hidey places for scale. They love in behind the sheaths more than anywhere else. Now this is a species, it's Cattleya harrisoniana, but it's 2 named varieties, but they are both the same species, they're just named varieties. So it's Harrisonia volcano queen crossed with Harrisonia binot. So effectively it's 2 named clones crossed with each other, but nonetheless it still constitutes a species. So Harrisoniana there. No sign of any scale on this one. And this doesn't need close inspection, simply because the sheaths are already off. Now this did bloom a while ago, and some numpty forgot to take a picture. So although this is a bloomer, I haven't got a picture of it. Bit of a nuisance. Let's just check the underside of the leaves and that, because a lot of these plants are in close proximity and scale can move from one plant to another incredibly slowly, but these haven't long been treated. But because that first plant we looked at, because the scale were underneath the sheaths, they get away with it. Whoops. Unfortunately. Right. Now again, most of the sheaths have been removed on this one, except on the new growths. Again, laziness on my part. And sometimes it's because they are so firmly attached they won't come off. I only need to peel that a little bit. They're either there or they're not, and in this case they're not. Where's that other new growth? See, the sheath on this new growth goes right up to the top. This is just laziness. No, I think we're okay on this one. Now this has had a few scale around the base, so I'm surprised they haven't managed to sneak their way up into those parts. Yeah, we're okay on this one. Yeah, that's good. So I'll clean those off better than that later. Now this one's got two sheaths. There's lumpy bits at the base of that sheath and lumpy bits at the base of that sheath, so they're both going to bloom. And this has got all the signs here. This is the latest lead with the sheath on, yeah? This will be the previous growth that bloomed, and at the base of that is an eye that looks like it might push because it's swelling. And the pseudobulb behind that also has an eye that looks like it's capable of growing. And back in here, right at the base of this one, which is quite an old pseudobulb, is another eye that looks like it's moving. So this looks like this might be about to really take off and get multiple leads. I must admit it has pushed out a hell of a lot of roots this year, which helps. You know, I mean, the better root system you've got, the more strength there is in the plant and the more ability to hydrate and feed, giving strength to the plant to do more with itself. You know, if it's in a little bit of a sorry strait with a poor root system, the best it's ever going to go is one new growth from the lead. That's all it'll ever do. But once it really gets going and gets a decent root system under it, with the appropriate feed and hydration, it should start thinking about pushing out in other places. So that one looks like that one's going to move a bit. Coming soon. Those eyes probably won't do anything until it's done its next round of blooming. Maybe. They might push earlier than that. Have to wait and see. This is a shame. This is Laelia anceps, and I really don't think this is going to bloom on the latest two growths. This is the latest growth here, and that sheath has just died, and so has this one. Now this one got treated differently this year. All the words I can find about Laelia anceps say it's a cooler grower. You need to keep it quite a bit cooler than other Cattleya types. And like an idiot, and I'm saying that loosely, I decided to do that. So this year, this one lived on the floor in the line of fire of the inlet fan. So every time the extractor and the inlet fan came on, this got a blast with cooler air. And I kept it cooler. Still had the light, right near the glass, but cooler, much lower temperatures with a cool breeze frequently, or a cooler breeze. And both new growths have decided not to bloom. So you're going back to your normal place, mate. You try these things, and if it interrupts, that's bloomed for the last 2 years on its new growths. And this year it's not going to. So it didn't like its change of environment. So in my environment, you have to bear in mind when people say these things, oh, Laelia anceps likes to be grown cooler. But they don't say how much cooler, do they? And I may have taken that beyond its comfort zone. And as a consequence, although it grew 2 nice new growths, it didn't bloom. Bearing in mind, you know, it would have been fed and watered the same as previous years. It's got good roots. Got no excuse, mate, really. This is a little hybrid. So no ID on this, but it does have very attractive blooms. It's only got 1 new growth. I split a very large plant, and the best bit went to somebody else, and I kept the more tatty bit. But the sheath does have lumpy bits at the bottom, so I think that is still going to bloom, despite its major interruption of being split in 2 and repotted. So not the best looking plant, but coming on nonetheless. Now this is a rescue. this one. And this has got a posh name. It's an SC, so Sophrocattleya, but bearing in mind all the Sophronitis have been reclassified as Cattleyas, it's a Cattleya. If that makes any sense. Makes a nonsense of it all in my book anyway, especially when you've got registered crosses. And this is Rose Pixie variety Pinafore, and was actually awarded by the American Orchid Society at some point in its life in the past. But it's a rescue plant. It produces a sheath every single time. Yeah, every single new growth has a sheath, and none of those have bloomed so far. But it's been in a very sorry state for the last 2 or 3 years, trying to rescue the flipping thing with virtually no roots. Well, this year it's grown roots, and we now have a nice new growth coming. I highly suspect that growth will bloom. Although that sounded like a possibility, it was more of a threat. Done. I'm getting on to the bigger stuff now, so they have to go on the floor once they've been watered. What I do with these Holey clay pots is any that have got roots that have gone down the side of the pot and are starting to accumulate in the drip tray, I always make sure there's water in the drip tray after I've finished, so that those external roots have got plenty to soak up. If there's no roots down in that area, I don't need to bother. I need a bit more water. Now there's no way this next plant is going to be in shot because it's 2.5 feet tall and the camera's far too close. We've seen it many times, but you know, we're currently looking at probably one of my best Cattleyas as far as the blooms are concerned. The spike you're looking at now is the latest spike to open. The other one's out at the top of the camera, which is there. Oh, fragrance! Oh, it's just got near my nose. The fragrance on this is stunning. It smells of freesias. No messing about. You know, anybody who's ever been near freesias and likes that smell, it's that. It's not like freesias. It is. It's absolutely spot on, and it's stunning. But it's a monster of a plant, as you can see. And effectively what this plant did was it pushed up a new growth here where my finger is, where's my camera, yeah, which then progressed and bloomed. But while that growth was going, this one pushed out and has gone on and bloomed as well. So, you know, it's done incredibly well. So there's a couple of worrying about scale so much, there's a couple of mealybugs on that spike, little tykes. We've also been lazy with the sheaths again on this one. Let's get in at a sheath near the bottom and have a look. Oh, that's swelling up nicely. That's the next new growth coming soon there. No, that does actually look okay round the base despite the sheaths. Some of these sheaths do take some peeling off. Yeah, we're okay. So I don't think I've had any scale on this one. But I'd love to take that in to an Orchid Society show, but if you look at the older leaves on here, they're just not up to it. The plant isn't up to it, despite the blooms being absolutely incredible. So maybe next time round, I mean, in time, these older leaves will go, but it's probably 2 to 3 years off that point yet. But if it's going to grow 2 leads at a time, it's only 1 lead, but consecutive growths. So we'll see what it does next. Now this is one that it's got so many roots that in between waterings they start to stick to their drip tray. But I have to go careful with this one because when you walk, oh, that fragrance, it's right in my nose at the moment, it's so strong. When I'm watering this one, the top of the plant's waggling around, and it has been known to unseat a mount on the rack there, actually unhook it and falls to the floor. Or in fact it fell in the water bowl last time, it caught it. But this has a hell of a lot of external roots on here. I would probably say the majority of the roots are on the outside of the pot. As well as inside, but you know, they've come out all the holes and formed a colony of roots at the base. So as soon as I've finished watering the pot, I add some so that that bottom root section that lives in the tray is well hydrated. They are the equivalent of aerial roots. You'll have to go on the floor if it's too big. Oh. Right, that's that one. Next. This might end up being too long, this video. I may have to chop it. This is a... Has this one bloomed? Don't think so. Its latest growth does have a sheath. It does feel a bit lumpy at the base. But unknown. It's a relatively new acquisition, one of the newer ones I got. I'm just having a quick look. Nope, we're safe. I think it might just be that one bad one at the beginning, but once I see something like that, you know, my mind won't rest until I've checked. So this one hasn't got a brilliant root system, and some of the ones that have come out of the side of the pot seem to be dying back, and now they're starting to branch. So they lost their tip and now they're branching. But it never started with a good root system, this one. It's got a very long name, this one. Siang Yu Red Pearl Red Dragonfly. I think it's going to be blue. But it's a nice upright plant. Latest growth is now right up against the edge. And I doubt if you can see, but that latest growth has pushed out a lot of new roots at the base, so they've gone straight down in the pot. So on the mend, I would say that one is. It hasn't got the best root system, but coming on. This leaf was damaged when I got it, and I was going to cut it off, and I thought, well, it stayed green. Well, if it's capable of staying green, it must be able to photosynthesize and must help the plant. So we'll just leave it there. It's not hurting. So, but you know, if a leaf's going to fall, it'll be that one. That's that little one. Next, we've got one that's playing games at the moment. Not quite sure what this one's up to. This is Shin Fong Little Sun Young Min Golden Boy. Writing right down to the bottom of the tag, which is always buried in the pot, obviously. Really long name on this one. Now this one's growing in various directions. This growth here is its best one this year. It's a relatively new acquisition again. And some of these sheaths really don't want to let go. And you've got to go careful not to dig into the pseudobulb with your nails, if you've got any, which I have. Otherwise you leave a wound, which is then capable of getting an infection. So if you're going to peel sheaths off, do it carefully. Take your time. Oldest bulb on this, the leaves are going to go soon. That'll improve its appearance, no end. The plant itself has bloomed virtually on every growth, but not on mine yet. This nice growth here does have a sheath. There's no lumpy bits in the bottom of that sheath yet. But then halfway through the season it decided to push these two little growths up from the back of the plant. And they've both got sheaths on. But whether they're actually going to bloom or not, we'll have to wait and see. Probably those pseudobulbs are too small. But this one had to establish itself. I mean, it did have some roots, but whether it kept them after it was repotted or not is debatable, because a lot of these have died back. But there are new root tips showing, and there's quite a lot of root growth up in the plant itself, up in the pot. So not sure whether that one's going to bloom or not. If it's going to bloom, it will be on that largest growth. The sheath's still healthy and green, so yes, it may do. And I've never known a Cattleya shoot out right at the back of the plant like that before. Twice, two new growths, and they're only small, but they've provided a lead. Yeah, and if that remains, then the next two growths in this area should be full-size strong growths, because these little leads have pushed out some new roots, so they'll have the support. So yeah, non-bloomer so far, but I haven't had it long. Now we got the bane of my life. You. Well, this is Laelia purpurata variety Atro purpurea, and it grows brilliantly. Has it bloomed yet? Has it? Hell, not once. And this I think is at least its second set of new growth that it's pushed up since I got it. Right, so non-bloomer. This should, in theory, bloom in the spring. And I don't know whether it's supposed to produce a sheath or bloom straight out the top. On some of the really older growths, it looks like there may have been a sheath once. But that's one of this year's growths that I'm mucking about with now. And, where's my camera? Right down in there, there is something. It's not necessarily a sheath, but Rachel's got this one, and she said hers blooms in the spring. So maybe that's what this one's doing. But, new growth here. Oh. No, we're good. I think we just had one bad one. Just happened to be the first one. So it's sparked my interest, shall we say. But the two new growths are here, and they've already started their next growth, and here. Yeah? So the next two new growths are already starting. And I've got a problem with this plant because the whole plant is right over one side of the pot. It just went the wrong way after I potted it. Sometimes they are unpredictable. The root mass inside the pot is solid. There's hardly any media left in there. And loads on the outside, all still growing. So I can't say it hasn't got a good root system, because it has, but it still hasn't bloomed. You're in the doghouse, you are. But we'll have to wait and see. If it's season, and it should be seasoned now, I've had it, when did I get this? Last year at Malvern, possibly the year before. I lose track. Unless it's a recent acquisition, which is fresh in my mind, then without looking at my notes, I don't know whether I've had this a year and a bit, or I think it's 2 years and a bit. Came from Ecuagenera, with a few roots and signs of two new growths, so I took the risk. I'm a bit iffy about buying plants from that lot. Because they're bare rooted to travel over from Ecuador. I think they import into Germany for the season and then take their plants from there to the various countries they visit. But this is another one with a lot of roots down in the tray, so I always make sure that the tray gets some a little bit extra. It grows okay, but as yet a non-bloomer. But maybe on this year's latest two growths, according to Rachel's book, it has a bit of a rest after the growths mature, because they grow through the growing season into the autumn, but it doesn't bloom until spring. So maybe that's now in its right state of mind to produce some blooms. We shall see. Anyway, that's another one of the big ones. Okay. Now that's cleared the whole of that shelf off, and I already know this video is going to be quite long, so I'm not going to do the rest of the Holey clay pots in this video. But it was more an idea of what I do when I water, and the sort of things I'm thinking about, what I'm looking for, you know, and a progress report on some of the plants. So I'll leave it at that for this one, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.